Well, this morning we're continuing our series on what it's going to take to make a difference in the 21st century. One of the things that we're going to have to get a handle on as individuals and as a society, if the 21st century is going to be all that it can be for us personally and for our society, is the problem of anger. You know, life's moving so fast today, and it doesn't look like the pace is going to get any slower. And as people move quickly, it's hard to have a focused perspective. And life's, as it moves on quickly, it leads to frayed nerves. And there are frustrations of all kinds. Lines seem to be long anywhere you go, and traffic is heavy. And that all leads to angry outbursts, and it leads to road rage, and it leads to arguments, and it leads to explosions of temper that can destroy your effectiveness and ruin your relationships and even send you to jail. I'm sure all of you in the last couple of weeks have heard about the accident in California with the SUV that the lady ran into the back of his car, back of his SUV, and he gets out and comes back, and her little dog hops over on her lap, and he grabs the Bichon and throws the Bichon out into traffic, and the little dog runs around frantically, and then he gets run over. Now that's tragic, but it's even more tragic that it's not just little dogs that are dying because of people's rage. You can open up the paper today, and you can read about an angry man in Baltimore who has already killed people and holds other people hostage. Psychology today called our day the age of rage. And that's true. Seems like not a single week goes by that you don't open the paper and read about some disgruntled employee, some upset spouse, some angry student who goes on a killing rampage. America has a tremendous anger problem, and it's not just random acts of violence. Most of the time the people who are killing each other know each other. Did you know that 60% of the murders in America are committed by people who know each other, but they don't know how to control their anger? Last year, more than 4 million women were beaten by their husbands who didn't know how to control their anger. Last year, more than 10 million children were abused by parents who didn't know how to control their anger. Anger can destroy your relationships, and it can cause you to lose your job. It can destroy your family. It can even lead you to kill others and then to kill yourself. You're never going to be all you were created to be unless you learn to control your anger. You know, one of the tragic things is in our society today, no one is teaching anger management. It's not being taught in most of our schools. It's not being taught by business and industry. It's certainly not being taught by the entertainment industry. In fact, they make the problem so much worse by showing the continual examples on television and in the movies of people, if you get angry, you just blow the person away. You blow up a building. You take your car and you drive like a madman if you're angry. That they model that kind of behavior. Anger control is not even being taught in most churches. But learning to control your anger is going to be an essential skill for surviving in this new millennium and in this new century where things do move so fast and can be so frustrating. This morning we're going to look at what God has to say about anger management, and I hope that you'll write some of these things down. I hope that you'll take these principles and try to apply them to your situation, and that you'll take them to work, and you'll take them to school, and you'll take them to your neighborhoods, and you'll find subtle ways of teaching other people anger management, because it's one of the very biggest problems that we face in this country today. Proverbs 14:29 says, "A patient man has great understanding, but a quick-tempered man displays folly." You see, the Bible says it's foolish to lose your temper. Now, let me say right up front that anger in and of itself is not sinful. God has wired you in such a way that you can get angry, and sometimes anger is the appropriate response. If you don't get angry when other people are being hurt, if you don't get angry when other people are being taken advantage of, it means you don't love and care as deeply as God wants you to love and care. Jesus was angry when he cleansed the temple of the merchants who were cheating the people in the very temple precincts and taking up space that was supposed to be used for prayer. But he wasn't a raging maniac. Sometimes getting angry is a loving thing to do, but anger must always be carefully controlled. Most of us don't know how to control our anger. We either blow up or we clam up, and neither is a healthy way to handle your anger. Don't think this morning just because you're not a Mount Vesuvius that you don't have an anger problem. Most of us don't know how to deal with our anger in helpful ways, in appropriate ways, in ways that get the problem solved instead of moving us farther away from the solution. Now, the book of Proverbs gives us 6 keys to controlling anger. The first of these is, I must resolve to control it. That's the first step. You have to stop saying, I can't control my temper, and you have to start realizing that while it's not easy, you can control your anger. You stop making excuses and you start accepting responsibility for your actions. Proverbs 29:11 says, a fool gives full vent to his anger, but a wise man keeps himself under control. Now notice that verse says a wise man keeps himself under control. That means that there's some effort involved. It's not easy, but it means you can do it. It is possible. You see, anger is like every other emotion. It's a choice. When you get angry, you're choosing to be angry. You say, but they made me mad. Are you going to let other people control your behavior? There are other responses that you can have to another person's unkindness, to their rudeness, even to their anger, besides getting angry yourself. Now, the good news is, since anger is a choice, it's something that is controllable. Now, some of you are already thinking, well, Pastor, maybe you can control it, but you don't understand. When I get angry, I just see red. I can't think anymore. I just come unglued, and I really can't control it. Oh, yes, you can. You do all the time. Think about times at home when you've maybe been in an argument with your spouse, or you've been yelling at one of your kids, and your voice is getting louder and louder, and then the phone rings. And you pick up the phone. Hello? And you're that pleasant, lovely person. Or, I'll never forget, it was about the second year I was here. I had an appointment to go visit some people who'd visited the church. And I came at the set time at night, and evidently the time had slipped up on them. They were in the kitchen, and they were having a knock-down, drag-out argument. And I don't remember whether someone, I don't know. I don't know whether they dropped a plate or whether someone threw a plate. But there was the sound of breaking dishes and cursing. There was extreme anger going on, so much so that I thought, well, I wonder if I should just pretend like I forgot the appointment and get back in it. But then I thought, no, they're expecting me, and I rung the doorbell. Instantly, there's silence. Then the husband comes to the door. He opens the door with a big smile. Honey, it's the pastor. Darling, why don't you get the pastor some coffee? I go in. We have a lovely visit. They're sweet and kind to each other, and you do the same kind of thing all the time. You can control your anger when you want to, when you're properly motivated. To resolve to control your anger means you decide in advance, I'm not going to get out of control when I get angry. You don't wait until the heat of an argument to decide that you're not going to let your anger get out of control. You choose in advance, before you reach the boiling point, that you're going to control your anger. Number 2, if you're going to manage your anger, you have to remember the cost of uncontrolled anger. You see, every time you lose your temper, there's a price tag. And the Bible is very specific about some of the cost of uncontrolled anger. Proverbs 29:22 says, a hot-tempered man gets into all kinds of trouble. Like probably you could stand up and share testimonies about times that you have lost your temper and it's caused all kinds of trouble. Or Proverbs 15:18 says, hot tempers cause arguments. We all know that. Or Proverbs 14:29 says, anger causes mistakes. Or Proverbs 14:17 says, people with hot tempers do foolish things. I know I've done foolish things when I was mad, and I bet you've done some foolish things when you were mad too. The point is, you always lose when you lose your temper. You can lose the respect of others. You can lose the love of your children. You can lose your husband or wife. You can lose your job. You can lose your health. Anger causes headaches and backaches and neck aches and all kinds of emotional as well as physical problems. You always lose when you choose to lose your temper. Now, one of the most common misuses of anger is that we use it to motivate our children. We all know the scenario. You ask your child to do something, and they don't. So you ask them again, and they don't. And you ask them a third time and nothing happens. And finally, you get angry and things start to happen then. Now, why do we use anger to motivate our children and even other adults? Well, because it works, at least in the short run. I mean, you can scare people into doing almost anything, and if you start shouting, it's a little bit frightening to people, and so it usually works. But in the process, you're alienating people. When people get angry, when you get angry at someone, you're pushing them away from you. And many parents, they don't understand why their children move away from them. You can be loving at other times, but if you're angry a lot of the time with your children, you're alienating them, you're pushing them farther and farther away from you. Anger almost always alienates, and it usually creates anger in the other person. So you are modeling for your children the kind of response that you don't want to teach them. See, the Bible tells us anger is contagious. It also creates apathy. You know, people will come in and say, I can't understand why my teenager is so apathetic. And then we go along and we find out that they've just been so angry at their teenager for so long. And you know what happens? The person that you're angry at that gets the brunt of that anger eventually comes to the point and they say to themselves, I can't measure up. I never can reach their standards, so I'm just going to give up trying. Anger produces alienation and it produces apathy. The very things that you don't want in a relationship. Nothing destroys a relationship. Nothing destroys a home. Nothing destroys a family faster than uncontrolled anger. Proverbs 11:29 says, the fool who provokes his family to anger and resentment will finally have nothing worthwhile left. So you need to resolve that you're going to control your anger, and you need to remember the cost. Number 3, if you're going to control your anger, you need to reflect before you react. You need to think before you speak. You don't respond impulsively. You put your mind in gear before you put your mouth in gear. Anger control is largely a matter of mouth control. If you can control your tongue, you can usually control your temper. The two go together. Proverbs 29:11 says, a stupid man gives free rein to his anger. A wise man waits and lets it grow cool. You see, there's biblical precedent, there's biblical wisdom in the modern term, chill out. That's what this proverb is telling you to do. You need to cool down, you need to lighten up, you need to take some time to think before you speak. Have you ever noticed that you can't put your foot in your mouth if your mouth is closed? The problem is we don't like to close our mouth. You've heard me say before, the average man speaks 25,000 words a day. The average woman speaks 30,000 words a day. Now, this explains many things. If when your husband comes home and he doesn't have anything to say in the evening, the problem is he's run out of words. Now, men, but you come home and your wife has a lot to say, and the problem is she still has 5,000 words, and she needs someone to listen to them. One man was asked whether it bothered him that his wife always got the last word, and he said, no, frankly, I'm pleased when she finally gets to it. The point is, we don't like to close our mouth and delay. But if you will take time to cool off and consider carefully your response, you'll be much better off. You see, the longer you hold your temper and your tongue, the more time you have to reflect and to think and to step back and consider the whole situation. There are many times when you're arguing with someone that you should say, let's just cool off for a minute and think about this whole thing before anyone says anything else. Now, I'm certainly not suggesting that you stuff your anger, because that is not healthy. You need to deal with your anger, but you need to take some time. The Bible says, don't let the sun go down on your anger. You should never carry anger over 24 hours. Why? Because anger that's carried over into the next day and beyond, it begins to develop resentment and bitterness in you. And resentment and bitterness are always negative. They're always detrimental to your relationships and your actions. So you deal with that anger within that 24-hour period, but you always take time to cool off before you respond. Now, what do you do while you're delaying? Well, you analyze your anger. Proverbs 19:11 says, a man's wisdom gives him patience. The more you understand your anger, the better you're going to be able to deal with it. And the more you understand the other person, the more patient and understanding you're going to be with them. So you reflect on, what is it about this situation that makes me so angry? And you think about, where is the other person coming from? You analyze your anger, and it'll make you wiser about what's going on in yourself and what's going on in the person. And it will give you increased patience. A good way to analyze your anger is to step back and ask yourself 3 questions. I need to ask myself, first of all, why am I angry? In other words, what is it about this situation that gets me so upset? And then what do I really want? What's my goal? What's my objective for this situation? And then how can I best get it? And what you'll usually find is that blowing up or clamming up is not the best way to get what you want done. The way most of us deal with our anger actually puts us farther from our goal instead of closer to it. If you reflect before you react, you have time to discover the root cause for your anger. And there is always a root cause for anger. You see, anger is just like a warning light, an alarm that goes off in your brain that says there's something more going on here. There's something deeper. Usually there are 3 basic causes of anger. If you start looking at root causes, the first is hurt. You see, we get angry when we're hurt physically or emotionally. If you hit your thumb with a hammer, you don't say, "Oh, I am so grieved in my spirit that I've hit my thumb." You are angry, you know. In that case, you're angry at yourself. Unless, of course, someone else was unfortunate enough to be standing around talking to you, and then maybe you blame your wife or your children for distracting you and causing you to hit your thumb. But you are hurt. And when you're physically hurt, many times that's expressed as anger. For men, that's especially true. It's not acceptable for a man just to sit down on the floor and cry, but it is acceptable for a man to become angry. And so that's the way that physical hurt normally is expressed in our society. It also, emotionally, if you reject me, if you belittle me, if I become emotionally hurt, the most common human response is anger. But listen, if you can express your hurt instead of your anger, you're going to get a much better response from people. You see, the most natural response to being attacked is to attack back. We attack back. So if you come at me and you say, "Alan, you have made me so angry," then I probably am going to be angry back at you. If my most natural response, that's what it is. But if you come and say, "You know, Alan, what you said deeply hurt me," my most natural response is to say, "Well, what exactly did I say that hurt you?" You see, people are far more sympathetic to hurt than they are to anger. So if you will share the hurt and not the anger, your marriage will be better off, your relationships will be better off. The second root cause of most anger is frustration. You see, as human beings, we don't like to wait. We get very impatient. Whenever you're trying to control something you can't control, it's going to cause you to be frustrated, and that many times is going to exhibit itself as anger. The number one reason I think that people today are so angry is because you want things to go the way you want them to go, so you want to control them, and I want things to go the way I want them to go, so I want to control them, but we both can't control them, so there's conflict. We can't control other people, so we get frustrated. You get on the freeway and you're in a hurry to get somewhere, and there are a couple of people that are blocking up the road that are going slow, that seem like they don't have anywhere to go, and you get frustrated because you can't control what they're doing. You can't get them out of the way. Or you go to the doctor's office, your accountant's office, and you had a 2:30 appointment, and you look at your watch and it's 3:30, and you're so frustrated. You can't control the rate that the doctor's seeing the patients or doing their tax account, and so you're frustrated. You know, we need to realize that most of our lives are beyond our control. The only thing that we can control in most situations is our reactions. And if you will just learn to ease off your natural human tendency to try to control everybody and everything, your irritability level is going to go way down. The more you accept situations that you can't control, the less irritable and angry that you're going to be. High control people are usually high anger people. And that's why in the Washington metropolitan area there is so much anger, because you have so many high control people. And you know that the problem is other people have this annoying habit of doing what they want to do instead of what we want them to do. When you get uptight, when you get upset, the frustration many times comes out as anger. Hurt and frustration are two of the basic root causes of anger. The third is fear. When you're afraid, if your children tell you, "We're going to the movie and we'll be home at 9 o'clock," and it's 9:30 and then 10 and there are no children, and you're afraid they've been killed on the road someplace, you're afraid maybe they've been hurt in some way, something terrible's happened to them, and they come home at 12:30 and they just decided they were going to another movie, and they never picked up the phone and let you know that they were okay. And what are you? You are angry. But what's at the base of that anger? You were afraid. You were afraid, terribly afraid, that something had happened to them. You know, if you take even the gentlest animal, like a deer, and you back it into a corner where it's terrified, even a deer will lash out and attack, and people are the same way. If you threaten me, if you make me feel insecure, the most usual response is anger. When you find someone with a big anger problem, you'll find someone who at the base of the whole matter is very insecure. Insecure people are angry people. Neo-Nazis and other hate groups. These are bands of very insecure people. Insecure people feel like the whole world's against them, so they have this attitude, we better get our guns and go out and get them before they get us. The more insecure you are, the more angry you will be. That's why when we learn to be secure in Jesus Christ and His provision and His care, then your anger level goes way down. Finding the root cause of your anger comes as a result of reflecting before reacting. You ask yourself, am I hurt? Am I fearful? Am I insecure? Am I frustrated? And you deal with the root problem instead of the secondary effect we call anger. Now, the fourth step to control your anger is once I understand why I'm angry, I need to release my anger appropriately. Ephesians 4:26 says, if you become angry, don't let your anger lead you into sin. Now, what that verse tells us is that anger in and of itself is not a sin. If anger in and of itself was a sin, God would be the greatest sinner that there is. Because the Bible tells us God gets angry all the time about the pain and the suffering that we inflict on other people. God gets angry about racism. God gets angry about injustice. God gets angry about exploitation. God gets angry when a person is raped or a child is molested. God gets angry when a person breaks their marriage vows and commits adultery. God gets angry because God hates to see people hurt. If anger were a sin in and of itself, God would be a sinner, but He's not. Why? Because God's anger is never selfish, it's always righteous anger, and it's always expressed appropriately. You see, the Bible says, be angry and sin not. That means there's a way to be angry. There's an appropriate way to express your anger and an inappropriate way. There's a helpful way and there's a hurtful way. Now, Romans 12:17 through 21 tells us some inappropriate ways to express our anger. It says, never pay back evil for evil to anyone. Never avenge yourself. Leave that to God. Overcome evil with good. So if you're getting angry to get even, you're expressing your anger inappropriately. What's the right way, the appropriate way to express my anger? Well, let me give you 3 ways how you shouldn't deal with your anger, and then I'll give you the right way. First, you don't suppress your anger. In other words, you don't just push it up inside and store it inside. When you swallow your anger, your stomach keeps count. The Bible says that to keep anger inside is like taking fire into your own chest. It hurts you worse than it hurts anyone else. Don't stuff the anger inside. It'll result in all kinds of physical and emotional ailments. The second thing you shouldn't do with your anger, you shouldn't repress it. You say, well, what's the difference between suppressing your anger and repressing it? Well, when you suppress it, you stuff it down inside. When you repress it, you just deny that you're even angry. A lot of Christian people do this because they think that they're not supposed to get angry. God wired you in such a way that you should get angry. It's a warning light that goes off that says, something is wrong here, something is hurting me, something is frustrating me, something is causing me pain in one way or another. The problem is, how are you going to express that? And some people, they just deny it. Have you ever been talking with somebody and you can see the things that you're making, that you're saying are making them angry, and you say, I see that I'm making you angry. No, you're not. Well, it certainly sounds like I am. I am not angry, you know, and it's denying that. And when there's a word for repressed anger, and that word is depression. You see, all depression is not frozen rage, but a lot of it is. It's rage that's turned inward. It's anger that's internalized. And if you've internalized that anger, it'll make you depressed. So let me ask you, what are you pretending that you're not angry about that you really are? What's happened in your marriage relationship or in your past? What's frustrated you or hurt you? Or what have you been denying that the anger is there and that repressed anger has turned into depression? What are you trying to control that you haven't been able to control and that's frustrated you, but you've repressed that frustration? What are you insecure about? The depression is not going to get any better until you admit the anger and you start dealing with the root cause of that anger. So you don't repress it, you don't suppress it. The third thing you don't do with your anger, you don't express it in inappropriate ways. Now, there are many ways of doing this, and none of them are any healthier or any holier than any of the others. Some of you get sarcastic when you get angry. I mean, you slice them and dice them. You know how to cut them off at the knees. You're the king or queen of cold cuts. You've got a deli mouth, you know. But let me tell you something. A sharp tongue will cut your own throat. Using sarcasm is not an appropriate way to deal with your anger because it doesn't deal with anything. It doesn't move you closer to a solution. It doesn't get anything resolved. Others of you manipulate when you get angry. You don't explode. You don't get sarcastic. As a matter of fact, most people would never even know that you were affected. But your motto inside is, don't get mad, get even. Did you hear what that woman said about me in front of all those people? Oh, she's going to pay. And you start making your plans and lining up your troops, and you're going to destroy that other person because of what they've done to you. And that also is wrong, and it's unproductive. It's a bad way to use your energy, and it's mishandling your anger. And some of you are Mount Vesuvius. And you are the ones that, you know, someone elbowed you when I started this sermon because they thought, finally, he's preaching a sermon for them. Well, it's not just for them, but there are the Mount Vesuviuses, and you spew hot lava, and you leave scorched earth and scorched people behind you, and everyone's learned to move out of your way when you get angry, and that means you get your own way, and that reinforces your bad behavior. And so you think this is something that works for me, but it's not. It's pushing everyone away from you and destroying your happiness and destroying your health and destroying your life. Others of you aren't maniacs, you're mutes. When you get angry, you just clam up. Now, the interesting thing is, normally, the maniacs are married to the mutes. So you've got one that's exploding and blowing up and the one that's just silent. You know, they don't say anything, but they're the silent martyr. And everybody knows that they're angry because you can see them pouting. And you've got to walk around on eggshells around them. And you're being manipulated by their silence. And they'll help you. They'll just give you one little crumb of a word maybe. And they have to be babied. And the thing I would say to you, it's time to grow up. That's not the way to handle your anger either. And some of you act out with all kinds of unproductive behaviors when you're angry. You say, well, I'll show him or I'll show her. I'll just go out and have an affair. Or you disappear into a bottle of scotch or a bottle of gin, or some of you get all down into prescription drugs or pornography or some other addiction. All of these are self-destructive, and they don't bring you any closer to your goal. They push you away. You don't suppress your anger. You don't repress your anger. You don't express it inappropriately. The Bible says you confess your anger.